let me record. And it's now the 24th of February. Rabbi Furst, Parsha Hashavua Teruma.
Right. Thank you, Lou. Good morning, Roy. How are you today?
Baruch Hashem, have you just started?
Yeah, we just got started, so you're not too late.
Wow, I thought I was very late.
No.
I raised a question, Roy, about the Aron and
Yes.
its status, whether it's holy or only the things in it are holy. And the rabbi said that he's going to combine that with something about the shulchan.
Right. So, if you'd like to turn to chapter 25, Chav Hey, and the pasuk Chav Tet 29, chapter 25, verse 29.
Right.
Okay, should I read?
Sure.
V'asisa ke'arosav v'chahosav ukesosav umenakiosav asher yusach bahain zahav tahor ta'aseh osam. So it means you shall make its dishes and its spoons and its tubes and its supports with which it shall be covered. Of pure gold shall you make them.
Very good. Okay. Now, Rashi goes into a detailed explanation of all these things. If you like, maybe let's start. Rather than skipping, let's start from the beginning of the Rashi on this. You can read it in English. Maybe save time, and because we're going to get to the main point that's going to be related, hopefully, to the Aaron and the things you mentioned about the Aaron. But yeah, go ahead and start with the Rashis if you don't mind.
Okay, you shall make its dishes and its spoons. Dishes refers to the form, which was made in the form of the bread.
Excuse me, just to clarify, here the form is got mold after it. The forms are molds, I think.
Very good. Okay.
Right. I hope the bread.
It's another word for mold.
Right. True. Very good.
I hope the bread didn't get too moldy.
Yeah. No.
Okay, so right, a form or a mold. The bread was made in the shape of a box, open on two sides. It had a lower surface at the bottom. I've got some pictures in my book.
Okay. What do the pictures look like?
Okay, so it's got. I think this one here is what the bread is showing, the bread itself.
Right.
And then this one is showing the mold.
I see. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Pleasure. And he would bend it upward at this end and that to form something like walls. I think that's that curved shape picture.
Right, very good. That's right.
This is why it is called the bread of surfaces, for it has surfaces looking both ways towards the sides of the Beis Hamikdash from either direction. He would place the length of the bread across the width of the shulchan, and the walls of the bread would be standing upright directly above the edge of the shulchan. Okay, it doesn't have a picture of that. I think I have a picture in my mind of what it's talking about.
Hold that up to the screen.
There you go, Roy. A golden form and an iron form were made for each bread. It was baked in the iron one, and when he would take it out of the oven on Friday, he would put it into the golden one until the following day, Shabbos, when he would arrange it on the shulchan. That form is called a dish, which is ka'ara. Ka'ara.
Kyra, right, Kyra. You might be familiar with that expression on Pesach. We have the Kyra, that the matzahs and the moror and the charoisis are, and the meimelach is on. It's called the Kyra, right?
Oh, the what we call the Seder plate?
Yeah, that's right. It's called the Kyra. Exactly.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's spoons. This means bowls in which they put frankincense. There were two of them for the 2 handfuls of frankincense that they would put on the 2 stacks of bread. And as it says, and you shall put upon the stack pure frankincense. And its tubes. They are like hollow half reeds split along their length. He would make objects in their shape, i.e., the shape of split reeds, out of gold. He would arrange 3 of them above the top of each bread, so that one bread should rest upon the top of those reeds, and they would separate between one bread and another, so that the air could enter and circulate between them, and they would not become moldy.
There you are.
So right, that we want to make a point of that. It's being arranged in this way, so the bread should not become moldy, right?
Right.
What Roy was pointing out. So
No, sorry, I wasn't.
no,
No.
oh
No, I just made a joke about moldy,
yeah,
but it seems a little bit odd because the bread miraculously stayed fresh and hot for a week.
right.
So why do you need to worry about it getting moldy if it's miraculously staying fresh and hot anyway?
Correct. That's right. I'm not sure.
So
I'm not sure. Go ahead.
here's a picture of those staves.
Mm.
Right. Okay. Now,
Oh, I'm not on.
and as Rashi explains, this was done as a preventative measure to ensure that the bread wouldn't become moldy. And as you're asking, the question is, well, the bread stayed warm for a whole week, which was in itself miraculous. So it seems a little bit superfluous to suggest that we need to take preventive measures that the bread shouldn't mold.
Perhaps we have to put in our bit.
Yeah, okay, yeah, very good.
I'm sorry, say that again, Roy. We have to put what?
Put in our effort, our bit.
Oh,
But
Don't leave it entirely up to Hashem.
it's Stadalus.
okay.
Interesting point. Okay.
So hold on to that thought. Let's continue on to Rashi.
In Arabic, anything hollow is called kasua, a word similar to kasva. in the singular form of uke-so-sav, after the prefix and suffix have been removed. Okay, so that's just a grammatical point. And it supports, this is to be understood as it is rendered by Targum Onkelos and its bearers. They are branches, golden pegs, i.e. columns of a sort, standing on the ground and rising considerably above the tabletop, in line with the height of the stack of bread. There were five notches made in them, one above the other. Oh, I think the picture that I showed you before, was not the staves. That's this what they're talking about. 'Cause
Okay.
I see the notches on the on them. I don't know if you can see that, if that comes clear, but
The notches there. Okay.
yeah. So I think that picture is of what we're describing now. There were five notches made on them, one above the other, and the ends of the reeds that were between the breads would rest upon these notches, so that the burden of the upper loaves of bread should not weigh heavily upon the lower ones, and they would break. The term mechilase means its bearers, and is similar to the word hachil in the phrase, I am too worn out to bear.
Very good.
But I do not know how the Hebrew term minakios applies to branches. There are those among the sages of Israel who say that the word kisosav refers to the branches, because they keep the bread firm and hold it so that it should not break. And menakiosav are the reeds, because they keep the bread clean so that it not become moldy. But Onkelos, who rendered menakiosav as its bearers, expressed the opinion that the one who says that menakios are branches. I'm sorry, expresses the opinion of the one who says that menakios are branches.
Those are the branches, right?
With which it shall be covered. This means with which it shall be covered. I guess they're just different Hebrew. The word yusach is Rashi's placing with Yehusa.
Right. Okay. That's the technical aspects of the words and their meaning.
Right.
But like in terms of the conceptual things which we want to speak about philosophically, so we see, as Roy mentioned, and Lou, as you pointed out as well, the basic question is, well, the bread was being preserved, and even more than preserved, was being kept warm in a miraculous fashion. So obviously, Kadosh Baruch Hu is not lacking the ability to prevent it from being moldy as well. So Roy mentioned about the point of, well, we have to do our part, right? That and question here is, what's the lesson? Meaning, these kelim that were made for the Mishkan and later for the Beis Hamikdash, these are all being designed and directed by the will of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning, this is the will of Kadosh Baruch Hu that they be designed in such a fashion, right? So it's not that we are coming along, Moshe Rabbeinu is coming along on his own and suggesting, well, we have to take precautions about the bread not molding, so let's design it this way. No, this was built into the actual mitzvah of the building of the shulchan in this particular case. So the question now we can try and apply it to your question. Lulu had the question. You want to state your question again for Roy, so he's clearly from how you were. Lulu was bothered by a point or two about the Aaron, as you mentioned, whether the Aaron was considered to be. Well, I mean, let's go ahead. State your question, and we'll clarify things as we go further on.
Okay, so the question is whether the Aron is something that is a holy thing, a holy object, or is the Aron just a container, and there's nothing special about the Aron, only the contents are holy. So the raya that for the latter is that there was no Aron in the Beis Hamikdash in the second Beis Hamikdash, because there was no luchos and there was nothing to put in it. So it wasn't there at all. Therefore, that proof that it was not holy, it's not special, nothing special about the box itself. The other
side, go on.
The other side would be that there were so many miracles associated with the Aron, because even if you look at the construction of it, it had a lid that was a tefach thick, a solid piece of pure gold, a tefach thick, and an amma, 2.5 amos by an amma and a half, which is many feet. So it was
a ton.
Yeah, it would exactly. So the Aron could not have existed in a natural sense. It would have just smashed itself down and crumpled. And also we know that it was carried by the Kohanim. Well, they couldn't possibly carry it. And we know that when it was being carried on a cart, was being transported by David HaMelech, and it slid to the side, and somebody put up his hand to support it. That person died because he wasn't supposed to touch it. So that would seem to be the argument on the other side that says that it was holy. It was holy in and of itself.
Where'd you get this argument from? Did you think of it yourself, or did you read about it, or what?
It was a discussion with Rabbi Moore, because we were discussing the construction, and we were saying that it has no legs. Apparently, there's a machlochus about whether it had legs or not, and the conclusion was there was no legs, and it sat on the floor. And I said, that's not really showing it proper kafed to put it on the floor. You don't put a sitter on the floor. Why would you put the Aron on the floor? That would seem to me that you should have legs, or should have like a little table or something that you put it on for kaved. And so then that whole discussion ensued as a result of that question.
It doesn't mention anything about a base in its construction.
No. It says there's 3 boxes, one inside the other.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
There was no real mention of a base there. Also, to add to the miracles, that when it was being carried, so you had the staves, the beams that were attached to the Aron, right? And if you look at the way they were attached, just with these rings, right?
Right.
Rings, unless they would be made of, I don't know, titanium or something like that, the rings obviously couldn't support the weight of the Aaron itself.
Right, the rings would have broken, and also the staves. They were
Yeah.
they would have broken. They wouldn't have held.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they were just wood emblazed by with covered over with gold. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that points to Hashem. Since the Aaron, from what you've been saying, defies all the laws of physics, it's obviously not part of this world.
Right.
And we can say the same thing, perhaps of, not quite, perhaps of Moshe's staff, except that when it wasn't being used, it was just regarded as a staff, not as a length of wood. But
Actually, I think it was made out of sapphire.
Sapphire, all right, a length of sapphire. But all right, but anything that was used for something for holy purposes, that holiness stays part of it for its existence. So so we reclose a siddur. That doesn't. The holiness from the words there don't go away. If we put a if you drop a pointer for the Torah, when you pick it up, you kiss it.
Right. So these things are called. We learned these halachas a little bit. You have tashmish kedusha. There are things which are serving things which have kedusha, meaning the let's take the Aaron. So the luchos were in the Aaron. So that's obviously the item of holiness, and the Aaron is the box by which they are stored in. So they're directly serving the luchos. So they become in halacha, they become a tashmish to kedusha. So that's one thing. That's one aspect. The second aspect is in the transfer of miracle, right? The transfer of miracle that we're dealing with here. That take for example go back to the shulchan. So the bread is miraculous, that it's kept warm and fresh throughout the week. Whether or not does the bread have certain kedusha, meaning is it considered to be a korban has kedusha, right? There are certain things which you have to be careful with in terms of a korban, right? A korban has kedusha. Are the breads like korbanos? I would think yes. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into it to really go into and understand all the details of the laws relating to the lechem apanim. But it's true that not everybody could eat it, right? It's only given to the kohanim. Only kohen can eat it, and they have to be accustomed to eat it in certain places at certain times, right? So obviously it has kedusha there, and it was miraculous. It has kedusha and it has miraculousness to it. Let's say, take an example for the menorah, right? The menorah. So the menorah is holding the oil and the wicks, which burn, and there was a certain miracle that was involved there. Also, the Tamid, whether that was miraculously lit all the time or not, that's a question. The luchos, was there a miraculousness in the actual luchos themselves? I don't know. I know the original ones, they were broken, were kept in the Aron along with the ones that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. Whether there was a constant miracle involved with the luchos, I don't think so. They were there.
About the letters, were they engraved right through when they
Right.
So that's true.
That was with the first Lucas. The second Lucas, I don't know if that happened with the second
Ah,
Lucas. That I don't know. I'm not 100% clear about that, whether the letters were in the same. And it said, I think, when Moshe Rabbeinu broke the first set of Lucas, the letters flew away, if I'm not mistaken.
yes.
Flew away. So whether the letters were still there in the Aaron, I'm not sure if they were returned. Maybe not. So of the various different things, take the Mizbeach also. The Mizbeach at the end of the Gemara in Chagiga, it speaks about how the Mizbeach was only covered by a thin covering of gold. Right? It wasn't solid gold; it was covered with thin plating of gold, and there was a fire constantly there, which and the gold should have melted. But through years and years, decades, even centuries, the gold did not melt away, and that was considered to be a miracle. Yeah, that was considered to be a miracle. So sometimes you have miracles in the thing, which for example, the bread, and sometimes you have miracles which are involved with the thing which is serving it, meaning take the menorah. The menorah, aside from the oil that was burning and the wicks that were burning, there was nothing really miraculous about the menorah itself, right?
Well,
Right.
we can make the same argument as with the Aron. That the menorah was pure gold. I don't know that much about the dynamics, but I would imagine that, I mean, pure gold is very soft. I would imagine it wouldn't maintain its shape naturally.
Okay, maybe not. I don't know. It's that you have to speak to someone who's knows about the properties of metals,
Right.
and but so I don't know, but
In a certain sense, don't we say that everything has got some sort of kedusha? So it's part of this world, whether it's a minor part or a major part or in between. It's still got some sort of kedusha. So the fork that I eat my food with has got kedusha. The plate, the doorknob that I use to open the door to the shul or to my home has got a certain amount of kedusha.
right, everything is being maintained through the Ratzon of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, without a doubt, right? So therefore, logically speaking, the fact that it's being maintained by the will of a Kadosh Baruch Hu gives it some connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, and therefore it should be considered to be Kadosh in one form or another, a minor or lay or greater, depending on exactly what it is and what's being done with it. Hmm? So you see various different examples of miracles and also of hishtadlus, meaning the case that you brought up, Lou, with the when the Aaron was being returned to Klal Yisrael from the Philistine. So the Philistines set it out on a cart, right? Set it out on a cart, a wagon that was drawn by two cows, right?
Right.
So so as it faltered, as you said, so one of the people there went to and was about to fall, so he put his hand out to stop it from falling. So again, you have to think, what in the world, again, what was the estimated weight of the arrow?
I'm thinking 8 tons.
8 tons. Okay, 8 tons. So, if you have to think about what did the person who put his hand out to try and stop it from falling, what was he thinking? If you think about, I don't know, how much does a car, your normal car weigh? How much does a car weigh?
Probably about half of that, probably about 4 tons.
About 4 tons,
2 tons.
2 tons.
My little Geo Metro weighed 1,000 pounds, and it was a very, very small car.
Right. So if a person saw a car falling, off of a even off of a sidewalk or something like that, he would even think to put his hands out to try and stop it. You don't even think logically that way,
Right.
right? You don't. So first of all, it would be worthwhile to try and understand that what occurred there, that the person thought he was going to help and stop the iron from falling, and contrast that with the command, as we saw in the Rashi, that the bread and the shulchan that would prevent it from molding. Right now, as Roy mentioned, okay, so there is a lesson here. There's a very strong lesson that you have to do hishtadlus, right? You have to do hishtadlus.
Right.
So even though that the bread would be maintained miraculously from week to week in a fresh and warm state, nevertheless, in the construction of the actual shulchan, you had the ability. This is the lesson that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is teaching us, right? Because it's a Kadosh Baruch Hu's command to make it in this way, that the bread shouldn't mold, even though the bread would not mold, right? Just like it did not get cold, it would not mold either. But nevertheless, we had to make the construction, and Hashem was commanding us to make the construction in a way that it would not mold if it was going to be maintained under normal circumstances, right? So that's an important point, because the basic essential understanding we have is, as Roy mentioned, everything is really being maintained from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? Nevertheless, as we mentioned many times, Kadosh Baruch Hu is in many ways doing things in hidden processes, that the true miracles shouldn't be seen and known, in order to preserve a person's free will. We don't want people to lose their free will. So therefore, Hashem hides the miracles that are occurring. The person should therefore have the free will to believe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu and in his ability and desire to run and maintain the world. So when we have to do Ishtadlis, now there's each one of the things of the Mishkan symbolically corresponds with different things. For example, the Shulchan is symbolically corresponding to a person's parnasa, his livelihood. And the Aron, it's obviously it's referring to the person's Torah, right? Referring to the person's Torah. The menorah, I'm not so sure. Could be the menorah is like it sheds light. People need light, it sheds light. Most don't know. So each of these things require different attitudes and different behaviors, right? The way that a person's going to be behaving in terms of his desire and his shtadlis to achieve Torah is different than his attitude and his behavior in achieving his parnasa, his livelihood, right? So therefore, the message that we could be understanding from the fact that the shulchan was designed in a way that it should, according to natural means, minimize the chance of the bread's molding, is because when it comes to our parnasa, when it comes to our making a livelihood, right, we have to do it in a way that's going to minimize the miraculousness of the Kadosh Baruch Hu giving us our parnasa. In contrast, when it comes to Torah, right, so since Torah is supreme, right, even if it's going to be a situation where miracles may take place, right? Since Torah is supreme, the necessity of Torah is so required that even if miracles will take place, Kadosh Baruch Hu will make miracles. So that could be the essence of the Aron. That again, as to whether or not the Aron itself has kedusha, so it has a din of tashmisha kedusha, which does have kedusha itself, right? Just like you have the Aron, right? The Aron of Kodesh in a shul, in a Beit Knesset. You can't, if it's used for Sifrei Torah, you can't now decide to make it into a kitchen cabinet. Yeah? Let's say they buy a new Aron, a Kodesh for the shul. What are you going to do with the old one? So someone has a great idea. Wow, the kitchen of the shul needs a new cupboard. Yeah. So good. We'll put our wine and our grape juice and our all the stuff we need for the kiddush on Shabbos. We'll put it in the Aron, the old Aron. You can't do that. Right? The fact that it was serving the Sifrei Torah as an Aron Kodesh gives it a din of Tashmish to Kedusha, and therefore it has Kedusha itself. So the Aron itself should therefore be no different than that. The Shulchan, if we understand that the Lechem Apanim is like a korban, so it would be similar to the Mizbeach, right? Similar to the Mizbeach as well. So those are just a few thoughts that we can speak about in terms of these points. I'm not sure if we came to a conclusion of your particular question, Lou, but I think you can, start working on it a little bit more deeply based on some of the things that we said, Mitzvah.
What do you think, Lou?
Well, you make several good points that I haven't really thought through. I'm still going back to the initial question of putting it on the floor. It seems like it's not really as much of a raya as I was thinking, because we could say that it has kedusha inherent in it, or we could say that it has kedusha because of its use. In either case, it has kedusha. So how can you put it on the floor?
Okay, the question about the floor could be just as the Kohanim could not wear shoes in the Beis Hamikdash, right?
Right.
That if I'm not mistaken, it's part of the is Admas Kodesh, just like Moshe Rabbeinu had to take his shoes off when he was by the sneh. So he told him to take his shoes off because the ground was holy, right? So the Beis Hamikdash, the floor of the Beis Hamikdash, the floor would be no different. So it would not necessarily be a problem. You could ask Rabbi Moore if you had a chance. Ask him if that's a possible explanation.
Do you think the floor in the Beis Hamikdash has a special status?
Could be.
It's not like a regular floor, even though people walk on it, but they walk on it without shoes after washing their feet. So it's and it's restricted as to who can go in there. So yeah, I hear. That's a good point.
It would in certain respects it would still retain a you have to treat it as a floor in certain cases. I mean, you wouldn't want to, if you had a siddur, right, or a Sefer Torah, I don't think you'd want to put it down even on the floor of the Beis Hamikdash, right?
Right.
But in
That
terms
may
of
be because you're afraid that somebody will step on it.
well, yeah, okay, that's a secondary concern. The question we're asking is the question we're asking is whether you could do it, irregardless of secondary concerns.
Right.
Okay, something to think about over Shabbos Mitzvah Shem.
Then you've got the problem of Ivrit writing on the footpath.
With the footpath of what?
Because the letters have got some kedusha.
Yes.
And the way that Sephorim have been treated, even if they're not we don't daven from them or that, but still.
Right.
Anyway,
I
Very
think
good.
we also have an episode where Shlomo HaMelech used the floor as a mizbeach because he didn't have room for all of the carbonos.
Mhm.
Does that sound
Right. Right. Okay, good.
all right?
Something to continue on. All right, good, Mr. Shem.
Thank you,
Also,
Rabbi.
thank you. Hope to see you both at the beginning of the week. You should both have a good Shabbos. And hope to see you beginning of the week next time, Mr. Shem. Thank you.
All right.
good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Be well, you and your family, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you, Lou.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you both.
All right, see you soon, Lou.
Okay, right. Take care.